Marvel's first attempt at Captain Marvel first debuted in 1967. The character was created by Stan Lee and artist Gene Colan. Well, technically. Stan Lee did create a lot of legendary characters, of course, but around this point in his career, he was only writing the first issue of many books just to get the creator credit. The real writer behind early Captain Marvel was Roy Thomas, a guy who became the successor to Stan Lee on most of the books he was writing. But even Roy Thomas would leave the series multiple times, leaving Captain Marvel without a consistent creative team. As for the artist, Gene Colan, he had no involvement with actually cooking up Captain Marvel character-wise. In fact, Colan personally disliked Captain Marvel as a whole. And so did a lot of people. Marvel's attempts at this trademark in general never really had the popular appeal of the classic Fawcett comics. Get ready to hear the word cancelled a lot in this series. The premise behind this new Captain Marvel was basically an inverse of James Cameron's Avatar. Here, it's the alien from a blue race that comes down to Earth to conquer our land, but eventually he gets won over by us lovable humans. Captain Marvel isn't a blue alien himself, but the Kree race is generally blue, so this analogy kinda works. The Kree as a whole are basically an advanced warrior race that serves a big green head in a jar called the Supreme Intelligence. It's actually an advanced AI, but it does look like a big green head. As for Captain Marvel himself, he was more of a pulp sci-fi hero to start. He didn't have any real powers aside from his Kree energy pistol and his somewhat superior Kree physiology. Captain Marvel's name was also literal in this version, as he was an actual Kree captain, and his name was Mar-Vell. Yes, Captain Mar-Vell. His superhero alias came from people just mishearing his name. His main adversary was his superior, Colonel Yon-Rogg. Yon-Rogg was in love with Marvel's girlfriend Una, and decided to send Marvel on a dangerous mission to remove him from their love triangle. This mission involved Marvel infiltrating a US military base, but Yon-Rogg quickly tried to sabotage Marvel and have him labeled as a traitor to the Kree. At the military base, Marvel replaced a dead scientist named Walter Lawson. It's here that the Captain Marvel from the movie, Carol Danvers, first appeared in the comics. Carol Danvers was the security chief at the base and served as the Lois Lane to Marvel's Clark Kent. Not only was she a love interest, but she was also super interested in finding out Marvel's secret identity. She sniffed out something was weird about this Dr. Lawson fellow pretty quickly and was eager to find out his secret. In the meantime, Captain Marvel helped save the human race, as he was torn between his loyalties to humanity and to the Kree. This set up the dynamic of the book, at least for the first 10 issues or so. Lackluster sales inspired the newer creative teams to reinvent Marvel multiple times. First, writer Arnold Drake had Marvel meet a new godlike being called Zoe that gave Marvel the traditional superpowers like super speed, strength, and flight. Then writer Gary Friedrich immediately revealed Zoe to be fake, an illusion by a supervillain to manipulate Marvel into betraying the Kree. At least Friedrich and artist Don Heck gave Marvel his new iconic costume, though. It would only take a few issues for Roy Thomas to come and give Mar-Vell his real new direction. Well, technically he gave him an old direction. So, he had Marvel get trapped in an antimatter dimension called the Negative Zone. The Supreme Intelligence of the Kree, that big head in a jar, was looking to repay Marvel for stopping the Zoe plot, and it sought out a way to free him. The solution? Mentally guide a young Earth boy to find a pair of golden wristbands. The bands were actually important, though, as they were a Kree invention abandoned on Earth. They let the young boy swap places with Captain Marvel in the Negative Zone. The young boy and Captain Marvel would basically share the same positions in space, effectively having the same body, to the point they could even share each other's thoughts. These negabands, as they were called, also gave Captain Marvel superpowers too. Again. You might notice this change basically became a straight ripoff of the original Captain Marvel's premise of a young boy turning into a superhero. This was more of a sci-fi bent to that premise, though, and the young boy was an established character with his own fighting ability, as well as his own smart-ass personality. The boy's name was Rick Jones, and he was originally the Hulk's sidekick. Rick was actually the reason Bruce Banner turned into the Hulk in the first place, and Rick felt obligated to help the Hulk because of that. Rick eventually met Captain America after he was unfrozen, and helped introduce him to the modern day. He then went on to become Captain America's sidekick, literally becoming the new Bucky. The original one from World War II was presumed dead at the time. Yeah, Rick Jones was basically the Kevin Bacon of Marvel Comics, and you could probably connect every character to him. But now he was Captain Marvel's alter ego, and the new focus on Rick Jones and his career as a traveling musician moved the series away from Dr. Lawson's military base and from Carol Danvers. Carol did have one last major event, though, when she was caught between the final showdown of Yon-Rogg and Captain Marvel. Rogg had killed Marvel's lover Una by this point, and Marvel was out for revenge. So Rogg captured Carol and had her as a witness to his final master plan, using a Kree machine that could recreate any Kree invention, and he used it to create a robot with laser eyes to beat up Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel was able to save Carol from Rog as Rog's machine blew up in his face. This explosion would later be revealed as the origin of Carol's modern-day powers, as it caused Marvel's Kree DNA to be imprinted onto her human DNA. Despite the new direction with Rick Jones, Captain Marvel's book still struggled to sell. It was even temporarily cancelled from 1970 to 1972. Rick and Marvel instead became part of Roy Thomas's Avengers series during that time. The book would really not find its stride until 1973 when Jim Starlin entered the picture. Starlin was originally the artist for the series, but soon graduated to become the plot writer. This is significant because Jim Starlin is the creator of Thanos, and Starlin's Captain Marvel plot is where Thanos made his first appearance. The character came right out of the gate as a major threat, too, as the story focused on Thanos' ascension to godhood. This narrative was an epic event that spanned over numerous Marvel books. This is notable since this was before comic crossover events were super common. This story arc is also where Drax and Gamora from Guardians of the Galaxy made their first appearances, too. Captain Marvel was crucial to stopping Thanos, as the crossover turned him into the protector of the universe. A strange, ageless entity called Eon granted the role to Marvel as well as the power of cosmic awareness. Cosmic awareness basically connected Marvel to the universe and let him become aware of relevant changes within it. This new role and the events surrounding it sparked some life into the Captain Marvel trademark, but the effect didn't last long after Starlin's departure from the series. Starlin only stayed on for one more issue after the Thanos arc, and it featured Captain Marvel fighting an exploding villain named Nitro. Nitro stole a powerful gas called Compound 13 from the military and from Carol Danvers, and Captain Marvel sought out to retrieve it. Captain Marvel succeeded in his mission, but he was exposed to the gas during the fight. The true significance of this issue wouldn't become apparent for many years until Starlin's return. Captain Marvel would eventually be cancelled for good in 1979 with issue 62. The decision was so abrupt that 5 issues were left unpublished. These issues had to be published in an anthology Marvel series instead. So the character was never really successful outside of Jim Starlin's run, which is probably why no one complained when Jim Starlin came back to kill him off. In 1982, Marvel published The Death of Captain Marvel. This was the first of the Marvel graphic novel series, as the industry as a whole began slowly transitioning to more mature stories. And The Death of Captain Marvel highlighted this transition, as Marvel was not dying in a battle with a giant space monster. He was dying of terminal cancer, caused by his exposure to Compound 13 many years prior. Despite all his heroic accomplishments, Captain Marvel was doomed to slowly wither away on a sickbed, to an untreatable illness that affects millions. His friends, Earth's mightiest heroes, are unable to do anything besides comfort him in his final moments. The story has the decorations of a superhero plot, but it's really about a man confronting the unfairness of death. Despite the lack of success Captain Marvel had as a popular character, this graphic novel is probably the best story to have the words Captain Marvel in the title. His life might have been confused and directionless, but he ended on a high note. But creating great stories aren't why Marvel was created. He was created to maintain a trademark, and he couldn't do that as a dead man. So now that Marvel the man was dead, Marvel the company had to come up with a replacement, and these follow-ups had an even harder time sticking around. Join us next time to see the beginning of the wild journey of succession that began after Captain Marvel's death.